Vladimir Putin says Russia was stabbed in the back, and NATO calls for an unscheduled meeting in Brussels after Turkey brings down a Russian fighter jet on the Syrian border. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry meets Israeli President Rivlin after a meeting with the country's premier and condemns Palestinian attacks on Israelis. And Ahmed Mohammed, the boy who was wrongfully accused of bringing a bomb to a school in Texas, is seeking $15 million in compensation. Welcome to i24 News. We begin with our top story. Russian President Vladimir Putin calls Turkey's downing of a Russian plane a stab in the back by an accomplice of terrorism. This follows an announcement by NATO of an extraordinary meeting to be held in Brussels after alliance member Turkey shot down the jet on the Syrian border. The military plane Turkey downed in the Hatay province was a Russian Sukhoi Su-24 jet, and according to Moscow, it had not entered Turkish airspace despite Turkey's claims to the contrary. Turkish Prime Minister Ahmed Mohammed said that Turkey had the right to respond if its airspace is violated despite repeated warnings. But the Russian president warned that the incident will have, quote, very serious consequences for relations between the two countries.
Today's loss for us was a stab in the back from terrorist accomplices. I can't qualify this in any other way. Our jet was shot down over the territory of Syria by the air-to-air missile from a Turkish jet F-16. It fell on the territory of Syria, 4 kilometers from the Turkish border. In any case, neither our pilots nor our jet posed any threat to the Turkish Republic. This is an obvious thing. They were conducting an operation fighting IS.
And we are joined now by New York Times reporter in Moscow, Ivan Nechepurenko. Ivan, thank you very much for being with us. These are very strong words from President Putin, calling the incident a stab in the back. Now, judging on previous statements, Putin is not one to make such strong statements without meaning them. What do you make of the president's statement today?
Well, I think he was furious about what had happened. I think Russia has this fear that Syria is going to turn into a new Afghanistan, and as Afghanistan was for the Soviet Union. So this will happen today. It kind of confirms the fears. So of course he was furious about what happened.
And Ivan, at this early stage, what can we estimate is likely to happen with the relations between Russia and Turkey? Because he did make some very serious, almost threats, some would say.
Well, I think that the economic side of the relations will be one that will suffer first. Foreign Minister Lavrov just announced that the foreign ministry is not recommending Russians to travel to Turkey because the terrorist threat in Turkey, as he said, is just as big as in Egypt. And Turkey is actually a number 2 or the number 1 tourist destination for Russians who go abroad. So Turkey is going to suffer great losses if Russians are going to stop going to Turkey.
And as we mentioned before, NATO is holding an extraordinary meeting following this incident. What can we expect to come out of this meeting?
Well, I think that is the big question. What the Russian media is talking about actively now is whether NATO is going to support what Turkey did or whether it won't support. But I think that depends on the real data on whether the plane has actually violated the airspace and to what extent it has violated the airspace. Because if it was a minor violation, maybe they will think that this was not justified, the response of Turkey.
Yes, Ivan Nechepurenko joining us from Moscow. Thank you very much for that. We will keep following the story for you here on i24 News. Let's bring you now some more of our headlines. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today in Jerusalem and condemned Palestinian attacks on Israelis. While Israeli officials say Palestinian civil projects will be advanced after the level of violence decreases. Netanyahu reportedly told Kerry the main problem is religious incitement on social media and that the Palestinian Authority is taking an active part in it. Netanyahu added that if the world expects building permits for Palestinians, Israel expects recognition of its settlement blocks. Well, Kerry also met with Israeli President Rivlin today in light of the recent violence between Israel and the Palestinians. This morning, 4 Israelis were injured in a car ramming attack in the northern West Bank. Kerry will also meet with Palestinian Authority leaders in Ramallah. I24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev was at the president's residence in Jerusalem during the meeting and sent us this report.
Rivlin also welcomes very warmly Kerry's mission to reach confidence-building steps from both sides, and he says that the most important thing, that it is important at this time to continue to try and build trust between Israel and the Palestinians and Israel and its neighbors, and that has been the very modest goal that Kerry has been presenting throughout the day, just to reach some confidence-building steps that both sides will agree upon. So while in the discussion with the Prime Minister, a very lengthy discussion we might mention, he discussed what Israel can be doing towards the Palestinians. In this meeting, we do understand that the Israeli president is expected to tell Secretary Kerry what Israel expects the U.S. to tell the Palestinians to do to lower the tension. And as earlier today, Kerry continues to voice unequivocal support of Israel's right to defend itself. He says here earlier today, he says that there is no justification for terror, no ideology, no frustration, and no emotion. Let's hear what he had to say.
While the world continues to face these threats, it does not make away and it does not take away from our duty here to find the way to build trust between us and the Palestinians, between us and our neighbors. We can and must show the world we can live together in peace.
This is a difficult time. We all know that. When citizens can be murdered, this is a challenge to all civilized people. And we all have a responsibility to condemn that violence, to make it clear that no frustration, no politics, no ideology, and no emotion justifies taking innocent lives.
Yes, our next headline now. Ahmed Mohammed, the 14-year-old boy who was arrested for taking a homemade clock to class in Texas, is suing his city and school for $15 million. Mohammed's teacher had mistaken the clock for a bomb. His lawyer said that the incident has sparked threats against the teenager and left him deeply traumatized. ABC News has more.
He's the Texas teen hauled out of school in handcuffs after his teachers mistook his homemade clock for a bomb. 14-year-old Ahmed Mohammed's arrest triggering allegations of racism and catapulting him into the national spotlight. An outpouring of support across the country. Twitter offering him an internship, Google asking him to their science fair, Mark Zuckerberg inviting him to Facebook, the young science star riding the wave all the way to the White House, accepting an invitation from President Obama himself. But overnight, lawyers for Mohammed's family threatening to sue, demanding $15 million from the city of Irving, Texas, and the school district, as well as written apologies, claiming the teenager's reputation in the global community has been permanently scarred.
My civil rights were violated. I got threatened a lot. My life is completely different.
Accountability needs to hurt in this particular case. Those apologies and those retractions, those are incredibly important to this family.
The police and Mohammed's school have stood by their actions. But for the first time, lawyers providing details of their account of the high school freshman's treatment, alleging he was interrogated by 7 adults, prevented from calling his parents, and forced to sign a statement saying he intended to bring a hoax bomb to school.
He is forever associated with bomb making.
And finally, British singer Adeles' new album 25 sold a record 2.3 million copies in the United States in the first 3 days of its release, and will likely break the record set by boy band NSYNC in 2000. Adeles' label XL Recordings last week decided to withhold 25 from all online streaming platforms, but the strong sales show the decision did not deter Adeles' eager fans. We'll leave you now with these sounds from Adele from Hello, and we'll meet you back here in 20 minutes' time.